Hello, and welcome to 5 Minutes of Marquette County History. Today, let's talk about roads. When explorers, then fur traders, and finally settlers moved into what we know today as Marquette County, people had been traveling throughout the land for thousands of years, and over time had built up trails which they often followed to significant locations like villages, water sources, and ceremonial sites. These are just some of the major Indian trails in Wisconsin. These trails even had markers, some of which you can see today, like Indian trail trees. In this photo, these trees were tied over a trail by Indians. This road eventually turned into Highway B going to Apakawa. Or trail trees, like this one still standing in Marquette County. Even petroforms, like this one near Germania, which sits on the edge of an Indian trail. Although early settlers used Indian trails, and some of them even became roads, like Eagle Road in the townships of Shields and McCann, the Indian trails did not always travel to the land new settlers wanted to get to. So, of course, plans had to be made for roads. Surveys began in Marquette County as early as 1832 south of the Fox River and 1852 north of the river. The first settlers came in ox-drawn wagons. Horses were expensive and hard to keep compared to oxen. Settlers could visit a land office in Green Bay or Milwaukee or other locations and look at the surveys. Then they would usually hire or ask for the help of someone already settled in the area, and they would choose the land they wanted. Once registering and paying for it if necessary, they'd begin moving in and building a home. This is the Ton Stelter homestead in McCann. Early settler descendant Merle Ennis left a detailed memoir of his time as a boy in the town of Douglas. In it, he said, "My grandfather said that the whole county was like a park. It was covered with tall grass with an occasional great oak tree. The grass was so tall that, in order to mark the trail for the return trip, they cut a small tree and tied it to the rear of the wagon and let it trail as they went back to catch the family." This is some of the tall grass the settlers encountered. It still grows on restored prairie in Marquette County. This big blue stem is at John Muir Park. The minutes of the first county board meeting show that several things were the first orders of business. One, even before roads, was licensing ferries to cross the Fox River. This map shows one of the ferries approved in the county board minutes. People could come to the county board and petition for a road to be built. Sometimes the settler had already done some work to begin a road, but the board held the power to choose to put a road in or not, and on occasion the petitioner, no matter how much work they'd already done, were not approved for that location. But often they did approve it, and then a road boss or path master would be appointed. That person would then contact all the people in the poll taxed area for that road. People could then choose to work on the building of the road to pay their share of the poll tax, or they could pay the tax. The earliest settlers would have gotten their lumber for their buildings from the Wisconsin River coming from the northern pineries and then being brought up the Fox River. But they still needed roads to transport from the river to their land. People needed to transport their goods to get to churches and schools and carry on commerce in villages like at this mill in Oxford. Merle Ennis wrote in his memoir, "When the ground was frozen before the snow came, the wise farmers loaded their wagons to capacity and set out for market. Sleighing sometimes offered good transport facilities, but as there were many rail fences reinforced with hazel and briar bushes, there was much drifting of snow in the regular roads, and it was common for an opening to be made in a fence and a winter road through the fields and woods to be improvised and used all through the winter." An example of poll tax work is what was once the corduroy road that was put in the township of Buffalo about 1856 that leads to the Pioneer Cemetery. John Muir writes about helping build that road with friends David Gray and David Taylor. They would have been working off the family's poll tax. Here's that road today. Notes from the minutes of the county board reveal that sometimes these road bosses failed to turn in the money collected from the taxpayers. Of course, that caused some difficulty, and the local assigned law officer would be given the work to bring the person in to pay up the money. But over time, districts became more and more sophisticated with their road work. And as the automobile came into use, the state of Wisconsin moved to improved roads, especially on the county level. We believe that this is one of the road bosses or the road workers in Russell Flats in the township of Westfield. And then things really changed. In 1912, Marquette County got its first highway commissioner, Levi Jones, who lived in Moundville, Endeavor, and Montello over his career. He attended the first road school sponsored by the state of Wisconsin. Levi was also the chair of the town of Moundville. The first road that the state and the commissioner laid out together was a road from Moundville to Glen Oak. And here is Levi in his new automobile. 1912 and the years surrounding that are significant to the development of roads, mostly because of the automobile. And while horses would be around as a means of transportation for many years yet, the automobile was beginning to be the future. Roads that were once considered side roads became important. New equipment began to be purchased and used, and new technology for the road surfaces were used. The automobile and improved roads would change everything. River traffic for shipment of goods would end, and even the railroads would eventually give way to trucking. Highways would be built that would skirt the small towns like Packwaukee and Endeavor that once were hubs of commerce and social life. But for all the changes, many things have not changed. People depend on roads. There never seems to be enough money, and without our roads, our communities would not thrive.